guess so. Hang on, I'm going to zoom on this whiteboard.
Yeah, it's pretty white.
Whiteboard, white balance. Okay,
All right.
that's better.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a little green, but whatever. Well, can I do this without dying? All right.
Ready? We live?
Yeah, we should be live.
All right.
Didn't actually check, but sure.
We live? Yeah. All right. So sorry for the delay, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the lunch, at least. My name is John Paul Posada, and this right here is Morgan Harris. We work with the Faculty of Engineering at UNSW, and the only reason I'm telling you guys that is because we're on YouTube, and some other people might not know where we're at. So today we're going to start the presentation of the UNFED meeting for May of 2017, and for those of you who don't know what UNFED means, it's University Network of Faculty Educational Developers. All right? Anybody correct me if I'm wrong, because I just checked it. All right. So thank you, Morgan. That helps a lot more than that.
That's why I put it there.
All right. So the first talk we're going to tell you guys about is team evaluation and the Moodle teamwork ecosystem that we've actually finally finished and developed, and it's up and running now. So what I mean by teamwork ecosystem is that basically now we can do every aspect of teamwork that we want to do digitally and assess within Moodle. We don't have to use other separate tools to get, say, submissions in, or to get peer marking done within Teams, or to get calibration or mark distribution. Everything can happen within Moodle now with all the plugins that we've developed. Now, I've been working on this for quite a number of years now, and it all started when I came to the university and I started working with Dr. Carol Russell, and she set me on this path, and then Morgan joined the crew a few years later, and we've been pretty focused on this type of work for a long time now. And we've been able to eliminate systems that we used in the past, like iPeer from the University of British Columbia, CPR from UCLA, and WebPA from University of Loughborough, and we've even tried CapMe that originally came out of the North Carolina State University. So there's quite a few variety of systems that we've used for teamwork. They all have their purpose. My main goal with the work that we've done is just to get everything under one umbrella, make sure everybody can use the same system that they always use for all their coursework, and stay within that system and not have to go to other systems to do part of their work or to get other usernames and passwords to access their work. So with that said, I'm going to let Morgan introduce some things about how the work is started. You going to use this?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
All right, so what do we mean when we're talking about the teamwork ecosystem? Well, we're usually used to dealing with individuals. Individuals sign up for a course. At the end of the course, they get an individual mark, and when they've got enough of them, we give them an individual degree. There is no group gradebook. There's no group degrees. So we have to sort of think about these in terms of sort of two conceptual spaces. We've got the individual space, and then we've got the team space. And because we need individual marks at the end, we need ways to get in and out of team space. And so we have built some tools to do that for you. We've got a way to get in, and that's with creating groups with a tool called Team Builder. It's been available for a couple of years. And then we have a way to get out with a new tool that we call Team Evaluation, and that's a way to distribute group marks onto individuals. And then while we're in team space, we have some more tools. We have some useful stuff. We've got ways to keeping up with team cohesion, making sure the teams are working together well using, again, team evaluation in an ungraded manner. We've got tools for submission and assignment. So we have the workshop in team mode, and we have assignment with group submission. And if you need to do some peer assessment within your teams, within your group work, then we have ways of doing that with the workshop, again, in team mode. And all of this is in the service of team-based learning, which is a concept that JP is going to cover.
So we try to stick to team-based learning and the whole concept of team-based learning, which we focus on these 4 areas that basically highlight key parts of team-based learning. The first part, obviously, wow, that's really hard to see. Groups and properly forming the groups. So we've got a tool that does that, and we've got tools that properly manage groups, and that can easily be done within Moodle, but forming groups within Moodle based on specific criteria is not easily done unless you use Team Builder. Now we've got feedback also that needs to happen within teamwork. That happens both from the instructor who's assigning the assignment, but also within the team itself, and they need to provide each other feedback, and our team evaluation tool now does that as well. That also addresses accountability within the group, and at the end of it, the assignment design, which is what the instructor envisions for the actual teamwork assignment, what he wants the students to learn from it, and how he wants them to progress through the team activity. So what tools do we use for that? As I mentioned before, Team Builder is a criteria-based team formation tool. So we use this tool to basically focus on building proper teams that will have the best chance of succeeding at the assignment that they're given. Team evaluation obviously provides feedback within the team so that the teams are working well together, and also addresses their accountability so that we don't have freeloaders within the team, or at least we can pinpoint who the freeloaders are and grade them accordingly. Then we have the workshop tool, which addresses the actual activity itself, the assignment, how you submit, when you submit, and with calibration you can have teams evaluate each other's performance within that, not with calibration. With calibration you can evaluate them becoming expert markers, so they get a deeper knowledge of the assignment itself by becoming markers of sample assignments of the same activity. And Morgan's going to talk about Team Builder.
Yeah, so the first step is making teams, and we've got our random cohort of anonymous students here. We could assign groups randomly, but of course that cohort isn't just all uniform automatons, they're individuals. They've got different skill sets, they've got different things they're going to bring to a group. So we want to have a set of criteria that we think is going to make good groups for this assignment. And with Team Builder, we distill those criteria into a questionnaire. The students respond, and then using their responses, we form balanced and diverse teams. Teams are just as diverse as the overall cohort is. And the result from that is that we end up with teams that are going to be much more capable of completing the work that's going to be assigned to them and adept at the task that's ahead. So once we've got our teams built, then we need to give them something to do. And for that, we've got the assignment and submission modules.
Yeah. So we did a bit of work, and at first it was a bit of hacking, and then we realized that maybe we should really implement this into Moodle and into these activities that can support teamwork. So we added the ability for the workshop activity to accept teamwork, so that you can form teams, they can go in as groups, one person in the team can submit for the entire team, not everybody has to submit, and then they can also evaluate each other's submissions. So they can self-evaluate within the team, they can evaluate other teams. If you want them to evaluate specific teams, we've enabled the tool to do that as well. So the last thing, and the new thing that just came out, actually I think the last month or this month, in the latest release of Moodle, is the non-submission activities, which now enables these tools like the assignment and the workshop tool to allow for teamwork that doesn't actually submit a physical item. So say you're evaluating a team's performance in a presentation. You're evaluating their presentation skills. That's really hard to do and mark at the same time within a system like Moodle, because it's always expecting some kind of submission, some kind of artifact to mark against. But now with non-submission activities, they don't have to submit anything, and you can evaluate the performance live, while you're viewing it. So that's a good new feature. It's still a little tricky for people to understand the concept, but I think we'll get there. Peer assessment. So the workshop in team mode and in non-team mode also allows for peer assessment. So students can then go in and not only learn about the activity that they're doing and submit that activity, they can also then evaluate their peer submissions of that same activity and get a deeper understanding of what was asked of them to do. Self-assessment becomes important here as well, because of the fact that you want to be honest about how you performed in this activity, how you think this assignment went for you, what were the criteria and the key concepts that you addressed. And self-assessment is is a really good tool to use to see if people are being honest or they're just, up themselves and saying, oh, I did great and this is the best submission ever and it's the best compared to all my other peers. Now calibration addresses that because calibration, they actually have to learn what the marker knows, so what the expert marker knows. So we measure that by giving them sample submissions to mark and then evaluating how good of markers they are, how well do they understand the criteria they're marking against by how close they come to the expert marker who marked that same submission. And that gives them a score, a calibration score, which we then use as a weighting when they evaluate their peers' work. So if I'm a really good expert marker and I come very close to the expert, I get a high weighting, and then I go evaluate my peers' work, and somebody who didn't do so well in calibration evaluates that same work, my evaluation is going to be worth more than theirs because they're not good markers, and the system shows that, whereas I might be a good marker. So that's how calibration works in the workshop tool.
All right, so you've covered 3 of our tools so far, but you might have noticed we skipped one. We skipped team cohesion there, and that's because it's using the same tool as the final step to distributing individual marks. And that's where the tool that we just introduced in beta this session, and that's called team evaluation. It's been a long time coming. We've been working on it for a long time. So what is team evaluation? Well, to answer that, you kind of need to think about what happens when you assign a group mark. So normally, you would assign a mark, and that's the mark everyone gets. Everyone gets the same mark. But that's not really ideal because it doesn't reflect the work that each person contributed. Because they're not all the same. We know they're not all the same. We used our team build to make sure they're all different people. They're all going to bring different things. And they all will have contributed different amounts to the group assignment. So what we really want to know is how this team works together. And I guess you could interview them all individually. That's going to take a really long time and is probably not going to be as useful as someone who has been watching this team very closely for the whole time. And you know who's been doing that? They have. They know intimately how well this team works together because they've been working together for weeks. So what we really need to do is ask this team some questions, give them like a teamwork sort of based rubric, and ask them about how the team works together because they have pretty well formed opinions about each other by this point. And if you throw self-assessment into that mix, then you will get actually a really sort of complete graph of how the team interacts and who has done what and who has contributed what. So we've got all this information. What do we do with it? Well, that's where team evaluation comes in. Team evaluation can take all those opinions and take the answers to those questions and turn them into numbers. And then once we've got our numbers, we can use those numbers to adjust our grades. Something important to note here is that if you can quickly average out those numbers, or you can probably see by looking that your group mark hasn't actually changed. The average of those numbers is still, in this case it was 65 is the group mark. Your group mark is king, the mark you assigned. And you can adjust within team evaluation how much those numbers will diverge from your original mark. So the point is that it's not changing the group mark. What it's changing is the individual marks. It's changing the way that group mark is mapped onto the individuals to make it more fair and more reflective of the actual work done. If you like a more in-depth explanation of how team evaluation works, you can look up our presentation from MoodleMoot, where we did a bit of a deeper dive into it. If you go onto YouTube and just search for MoodleMoot team evaluation, you should find it pretty easily. So.
All right, so with team evaluation, we have 2 purposes, and one of them is team cohesion. So to make sure that the team is functioning well, and that includes a lot of feedback to each other from within the team. And then we have the distribution of individual marks, which Morgan just spoke about. Now, team cohesion, this is kind of important to do early on in the team process. So within the first 2 weeks of a team forming and starting to work together, I highly recommend that you run a team evaluation, even in ungraded mode, so that they get early feedback about how they're performing within the team, what their peers think about their performance within the team, and be able to adapt their behavior within it if need be. So if somebody's not showing up to meetings and they realize that a lot of their team members are noticing this and they're not liking it, then maybe if they hear that within week 2, by week 12 they have adjusted that behavior and they'll get a fairer mark in the team process. So you ask them the questions about each other. You ask them to provide feedback anonymously. I'm not too keen on providing the anonymous feedback. In small groups, it's pretty obvious to find out like who gave what feedback. But also at higher ed level, everybody should be responsible and shouldn't be abusive, and you should be almost at a professional level of behaving within, as adults within a team. So I'm not keen on the anonymity of feedback. But if you have large groups and you think it's useful, feel free to use it. It's available. And as I mentioned before, you use those results. Hopefully the students get that feedback early on and they adapt their behavior if they're not doing well or if their teammates don't think they're doing well. Now, distributing the individual scores, obviously, at the end of their activity, once you've graded their group assignment, you want to get them to provide the feedback about how they performed within the team and what they thought of each other's capabilities and contributions to that team activity. That then adjusts their final group mark to an individual mark, and we think that's a lot more fairer in the team process as far as, you know how people complain about group work all the time. They say, oh yeah, we go into a group work, I do all the work, everybody gets the same grade, even though some people never showed up, they never did anything. Well, hopefully we address that with team evaluation, and if we explain that early to the students, then they'll understand that this is what's going to be expected of them, and even though it's a teamwork activity, they're going to be judged as individuals within that team, not as a whole team mark itself in the end.
Right, so that sort of covers all the tools we've built. We've got all the tools now to safely navigate our trip through TeamSpace and then back to the individual grade book. We've got, just to cover it again, we've got the getting into TeamSpace, creating teams with TeamBuilder. We've got the next steps. We've got making sure our teams are working well together, team evaluation. We've got submission and peer assessment with assignment and the workshop in team mode. And a way to get back, again, with team evaluation. So that about covers the teamwork ecosystem. We've done our best to make our teamwork more balanced, make our teams more balanced and more productive, and make our team-based learning more effective and more fair. So if you want to check out any of the code behind this, if you're in the coding mindset, or if you want to drop it into your own Moodle for some reason, if probably not the people here, but the folks at home, if they want to use it on their own Moodles, you can check it out on GitHub. The GitHub links will be in the YouTube video description for this talk. And that's about it from us. If you guys have any questions, now would be a good time to fire them at us.
I had a question. So in the team builder, you classify people by colours and then made sure every team had...
I mean, you don't literally do that.
No, I think
that's a really bad idea.
That's how it should be. And then the red person ended up doing poorly in your example.
Yes.
Is there analytics to say, based on classification, whether the red person always did badly in every group?
They're not actually linked, those two. You could, there are no analytics built into Moodle to do that because the two activities are entirely separate.
Okay.
You can get the results from TeamBuilder. I think you can get them in a table format.
Yeah, you can get those results. However, the thing about TeamBuilder is you decide what the criteria is. Mm-hmm. So you decide the questions you're going to ask of them to then get the answers you want to form the best team possible for the assignment you're giving them.
There's also something I left out of that animation because animation is hard. which is that mostly there are going to be a couple of people who have met criteria in a team, but then there's going to be a bunch of grey circles of people who didn't meet any of the criteria, or people who are randomly allocated once you've satisfied the criteria for a given team. And there are going to be people who are filling double roles if you have small enough teams. Team Builder actively tries to avoid people having double roles, but if it can't satisfy the team criteria any other way, then it will have people do double roles.
Yeah, and this is quite different from what a system like CatMe tries to do. So CatMe team building experience is based on personality tests. So they're trying to build good teams based on people's personalities, as opposed to the criteria that you decide that you think is going to form a good team for the activity that you've assigned them. And the reason we focused it on this end about criteria that you decide and the instructors decide is because we work in engineering. And engineering projects are very specific. And we need people with specific talents and skills to form a team. So that's why we focused on the tool doing that. But it can be adapted if you want to do it in a personality base. The questions that you ask of them can be personality questions, and then you can decide to use that criteria to build your teams. So it's highly adaptable. Sorry, you had a question as well?
I have 15 questions.
All right, I'm not sure we have time, but
I guess, so one of the first ones would be, is there any opportunity for a deeper dive tutorial or something on these?
as I mentioned there, there's a deeper dive into team evaluation
But
on
not
YouTube.
code. I mean, I'm putting
No, that's not code. That's actually a dive into how the thing works. But
what about troubleshooting and
troubleshooting and stuff, we
So the question is there further help on using these tools?
there's help there. It's available, yes.
There's help. There's some online videos, especially about Team Builder. It's probably a bit dated by now. We might remake that. But yeah, once we have some bit of downtime, we do plan on creating more video tutorials and hopefully hosting some workshops for anybody interested in further using these tools. And I know the PVCE group are fairly interested, and they kind of have fluctuated in size. So there's been people that went through these training before and they understood it well, and now they're working somewhere else. And now there's new people here, so maybe we have to go through training again. So, yeah.
and then just a more specific question. What is a manageable team size to run team evaluation? Because we're trying to do it with a team of 10 people, but the question is, first of all, how does it even look? And second of all, does that mean that the variation on the group grade is going to be much larger?
No, the variation, so if you have a group of 10 people, then each person has 1/10 of the influence. It ends up, if you plugged in similar-ish data between a group of 4 people and a group of 10 people, you end up with the same level of deviation.
Yeah. And it also depends on the, what do you call it, the fraction?
The adjustment
fraction? I think we called it the adjustment fraction, which is basically the weighting or the importance you give their opinion of each other versus the expert or the marker's opinion of the whole group. So by default, it's 50-50. You assign the group mark, and you give yourself that group mark, you give it a weighting of 50%, and then whatever they decide is worth 50% as well.
It's, without diving too deep into the maths here, it's kind of a bit difficult to explain that, but the example I showed had an adjustment fraction of 100 because it's from the other presentation that I did at Moot, where we had the actual numbers going onto the thing and explained it. So that was as adjusted as it can get, and you could see that it was not moving that much. So the adjustment fraction, if the adjustment fraction is 100%, if you gave everyone 100, then the people's opinions of each other, that would be the actual mark. But then as you reduce the mark, then that that adjustment will be reduced. You can look into that. It's not complicated maths. It's just kind of difficult to explain verbally without drawing it on the board.
But to address your other concern about how it looks, now, to me, a team of 10 is too big, in my opinion. I think teams should be, 6 or less. possibly, depending on the activity and the assignment you're giving them. And I know what you mean by looks because of the way that we've designed the questionnaire to be cascading. And maybe if we see, because to let you all know, team evaluation is still in beta. This is really a live beta that we're doing within UNSW. And there should be text in bold showing you that, but I don't know if Blackboard have put that in for us everywhere that we want. But anyway, if it becomes an issue and we see that a group of 8 and above is just too complex and visually not appealing or it doesn't work, then I'll tell Morgan to change it so that any number 8 and above displays the questions differently to the group.
Yeah, if you have specific issues with how the questions are being displayed, either for any particular set of circumstances, we'd like to know about it. So if you're saying like at big groups, the cascading view becomes confusing, or like it stuffs up in some way, like it breaks over a line or something, then yeah, I'd like to know about it so I can go and fix it for big groups.
David?
I've got a question that's like a pedagogical ramification rather than a technical one.
Yep.
Traditionally, or at least when I was an undergrad, groups self-formed, which meant strong students grouped together, lazy students grouped together, and that sort of thing.
Yep.
But that mechanism meant that students that were striving for top marks were in groups of motivated people that would get a top mark. By sort of creating these equal distribution groups, in effect, you're throwing an anchor onto really top students that's going to limit their ability. Like, let's suppose that they've got a goal to get an HD because they want to get a PhD scholarship or something. They're effectively given a big anchor. So do you think there's a way to address that?
There is. You can ask that question specifically within the questionnaire. So you can ask them, are you a motivated, driven student who expects an HD out of this?
Yeah.
Or are you not? And you can use that as your criteria to make sure that you don't have too many anchors within high-functioning teams. However, you can also look at it the other way, as in the high-functioning teams can lift up the students who are underperforming or the students who are struggling. But yeah, that is a way to address it. That's why we made Team Builder to be quite flexible, because it's up to you to decide the criteria and decide the questions you're going to ask.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
With the team evaluation one, so when the convener gives the mark, from there, all the data that you get from the next bit, does that automatically generate the end result, the end mark?
So when they evaluate each other within the team, there's a number of different questions that you can ask. There are 2 that actually affect the mark, and 1 that's just a comment question, just for feedback. So the Likert scale type question is where you rate them from 1 through 5 on this specific question, and then there's a split 100 question where you ask them to split a grade of 100 amongst the team members, right? So all those decisions then become scores that then affect the group mark and that give that individual that final mark.
And that happens
That happens automatically.
That happens automatically.
Yeah,
the
so
release of it doesn't happen automatically, unless you set it to be automatic.
It's automatic by default.
Yeah, it's automatic by
Yeah.
default, but you can control it. So say you don't want those marks to go out automatically, you want to review them beforehand, especially if you have comments in there. If you have comments in there and you don't want to release those automatically, you want to review them to make sure people aren't being abusive or anything like that, and you have control of that as well.
I guess my question was in the same aspect. Like, I was thinking, okay, what if we have a group of 3 people?
Yep.
With these 2 girls here, they give 90%.
Yep.
That's how we mark. 90, and then she marks 90.
All 1s is the same as all 5s. So so if you all give each other 10,
Same mark, yeah.
and or if you all give each other 1, it's exactly equivalent. So
Yeah. Okay, that was my thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I could say, okay, I'm gonna give them like.
it can't. Your mark. You can't because the average is always the group grade you assign, unless it goes over 100. But the average is always the group grade you assign. So if you all rate each other highly, it doesn't affect your group grade at all. If you all rate each other low, it doesn't affect your. So basically, if the team is of the opinion that everyone contributed equally, then the group grade isn't adjusted.
Yeah. But what if I gave them like very low marks? So then I can be benefit from that, So my mark is increased and their mark is increased.
Yes, but if you're of the opinion that you did a lot of work and they didn't do any, then yeah, that would happen. That's another pretty good reason for turning off
Self-assessment.
turning off self-assessment if you think that's a likelihood. Can be good for sort of really big courses with lots of groups where you can't necessarily keep on top of people trying to game the system. There's some forthcoming stuff we got in the pipeline right now that has to do with the ratio of self-assessment to peer assessment and seeing if people have inflated opinions themselves or if they're trying to game the system, and selectively excluding that. Yeah, you can turn off self-assessment. You can turn on manual release, so you could manually go through and check and make sure no one's trying to do that, and manually sort of rescind those marks.
Yeah,
so
down the road, we do plan on introducing something that we did in the workshop activity where we highlight marks that are 2 standard deviations away from the norm, from what everybody else judged that assignment. So we're going to try to do that within team evaluation as well. And the ratio of this self-assessment versus what everybody else thought of the person, that's going to be important to judge as well, to see if somebody thinks too highly of themselves or too poorly of themselves. And that idea we got from Spark that I think UTS developed. So yeah, it's down the road.
John Paul, what information do you provide, say in Moodle, for students when team evaluation is going to be used as part of the assessment? Do you explain in detail with students how this works?
That's what I highly recommend the lecturers do.
So verbally?
Either verbally or just write it down in the actual activity itself. So just explain to them that this is a group activity, but you're going to be judged on how you perform within your group as well, and that judgment from your peers is going to affect your individual mark of that group activity. So it's important to explain up front. And hopefully if you're using team evaluation early on without a grade, they understand what these questions are going to be like, and they understand that you're trying to make them accountable within the team. So yeah.
And it's one of the advantages of having it right in the plugin, in the assignment or in the workshop, is that you can explain that text using the same text you're using to explain how the assignment works overall. So when students are reading through the assignment introduction, they can read that text that says, this assignment includes a team evaluation phase. You're required to complete a questionnaire after you've submitted your work.
And with that, I am going to introduce Phil Hallen, who is going to talk to you guys a little bit about what we've done this past semester in engineering as far as lecture recording service that we provided. So I'm sure you're all familiar with Echo 360 and how it records lectures. Basically captures the lecturer's voice and the presentation that they give. What we've introduced is that kit that you're seeing right there that's recording us. That is now the kit that we train students to use to record lectures. And Phil and David have been 2 of our guinea pigs this semester, and hopefully they've been happy with the service. We'll see.
Cool. Cheers. Audio's coming through okay, I presume, on the desk. Let me know. Thanks, Morgan. Cool. G'day. Thanks for having me along. So I'm an associate lecturer in the School of Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering. I've taught a thermodynamics course, which is both a large course, so it's compulsory for our engineering undergrads. It's an unpopular course, but that's not what this presentation's about. But that's okay, most of the people are passing. But I was going to talk about the live stream. So why have we been going with live stream, and some of the, I guess, my reflections, my experience as an academic, and what the outcome might be. Oh, sorry. That's a photo of me, obviously, doing a lecture. But you've got me over here. So why are we doing live streams? Our school is increasing in enrolment. I think the university is doing like 5% year-on-year growth. Our school's doing 15 to 17% year-on-year growth. So we built a new building and we put a lecture theatre in there that now can't hold our first-year classes. Or second-year classes, and next year it can't hold our third-year classes, because that's how that works. So we've got large classes, and also the university is striving for flexibility, being digital. They're words that we're using, so this is trying to fulfill that. So this is what my enrolment looked like for this year, and I guess The things are that here I've got 2 lecture streams. One's in a lecture theatre and one's called a web stream. And so my enrolment's 270 are my traditional students, so they attend a lecture, and 80 students are in the web stream. So David's got something similar. He's got about 300 in his traditionally enrolled stream and then 170 in his web stream. So these are students who are enrolled in the course. They're paying the same fees as everyone else. They're assessed using the same assessments, but they're not welcome to attend lectures because the theatres aren't large enough to house them. And or both enrolments open at the same time, and some students are enrolling in the web stream rather than enrolling in traditional lectures because, and it's off to the right so you can't see it, but web streams don't have a dedicated time slot, so they won't clash with other classes. So if you enroll in my class in a web stream, you can attend another lecture that's at the same time as mine. I've got someone who works on Tuesday nights. I've got someone who has sport practice on Tuesday night. So they're web stream students because they have improved flexibility. So that's a positive thing. We had web stream students a session before we had live stream recording or recording in any capacity. We were using Echo, and Echo, if you plug in with a HDMI cable, it doesn't record because of copyright issues. If you're writing on a whiteboard, it doesn't record because it just doesn't capture that. Not everyone was wearing lapels, so not all the audio was great. So we were enrolling students in a web stream, not inviting them to attend lectures, and that was their experience of the course. And analytics showed they were performing worse than students who are traditionally enrolled. So this is now our first session of doing this. So reliability, and non-verbal communication and gestures. So things that you might say of technical importance that you communicate face-to-face, Echo doesn't pick those up. So within Moodle, and this is something that I did, I don't think David did this, but I get my groups here. So this is a previous screenshot. If you auto-generate groups, then it can pull in the data from the enrolments and gives you some groups. And so I've given a topic within Moodle that is for web stream students only. So my traditional students can't see it. This is the live stream. So this is, you can see the lecture as it happens if you care to. Honestly, not many people are doing that. Most people are watching the videos after the fact. Not many students are watching. So of the 80, like 5 would be the maximum number of students who are actually in the session at the time. So that's our live stream process. As soon as we stop recording though, that's available on YouTube. For traditionally enrolled students, 24 hours later, they've got a media collection that points to a space in the box, and they can download from that as well. So we thought being able to download lectures was important because students are watching them on devices, phones, on the bus and train, whatever. So for flexibility, you can download those things, and so you click on there, and it's a list of lecture titles, dates, title, and then just the box link. So that's now like 40 items long. So that's my collection. What does it look like? This is an example of what is probably going to YouTube Live now. So which is going to be interesting, because if you're on YouTube Live, you've probably got me somewhere, and then you've got this tri-screen thing somewhere else. But this is me, so I've got my PowerPoint presentation. On the left here, I'm using a Surface Pro instead of a whiteboard in this case. So it's capturing my pen marks as a draw in OneNote on a Surface Pro. And then down the bottom is me in a small picture giving the presentation. So, and that can be chosen. So live, they can put up the PowerPoint only, the PowerPoint with me in a small picture, me and the PowerPoint side by side. So there's someone electing what the shot will be. Live, I give them a USB drive at the beginning of the lecture. At the end of the lecture, they hand it back to me, and I've got that as an MP4 ready to upload to the box. I do no further editing. I could crop the beginning and end, but I don't go there. So for me, it's been a really smooth experience. I normally wear a body pack anyway. I plug my Surface in and so forth. I'm ready to go. There's some setup time, so I arrive a few moments earlier than I might otherwise. For me, there's been a bit of a learning process. Physically picking up a marker and writing on the whiteboard is a very easy thing. Using a device, sometimes mine goes to sleep, I have to re-log in, whatever. So it's taking a little bit of my mental effort to run this system, but not too bad. And with the MP4, I'm uploading it to the box afterwards. So I'm trimming it if I feel it needs to be trimmed, uploading it to the box. That might take 20 minutes, half an hour. After a 2-hour lecture, I upload a few things. What I miss, because I like eyeballing people and feeling like I'm talking to people, is the interactivity with the web stream students. We talked about having a chat channel and having some sort of live interface where I'm lecturing and I'm looking to see what, I haven't done that. You tried?
No, I've trained my camera crew to watch the chat room and read out the questions to me.
And are you getting much?
Probably on average I get 2 questions a lecture.
Yeah. So not,
Which is proportionate to the number of people in the lecture theatre that would probably ask.
That's true, yeah. Chicken and egg, I didn't promote interactivity in the live stream, so I didn't get lots, and I didn't prioritise watching the chat channel because I wasn't getting lots of interactivity. If it came in demand, it's something we could do. I have done live Slido sessions. So that's my experience. Very good feedback from students. They love it, much prefer it to Echo, speak very highly of it, really appreciate the quality of the recordings. I think it's cannibalised my lecture attendance a bit. So you don't have to come to lectures because 24 hours later, you get a video experience, which maybe I'm old school, but I still think being physically in the room, you get a more visceral experience. I don't know. Whatever, that's not the way we're going. That's okay. I had an interesting experience, so I ran a pair share. So, hey, talk to the person next to you, and then we'll talk to the class, and took that opportunity to walk around the class. And a few of my students were watching sport videos. So they're in my lecture, and then they're doing something else, but so are you. No, you're one to laugh. No, and so whatever, the third person I saw doing that, I said, oh, who's winning the tennis? Is this live? And he said, oh no, it's a recording. I'm like, well, but hang on, my lecture's live. So, oh no, I watch your lectures after. I watch your recordings afterwards. So if you're physically attending a lecture, right, and I only attended anyway. I'm not that old. But when I attended a lecture, if something was said, you captured it in the moment. There was some value there. So I think we're training students. We're matching their culture of not valuing the live experience, but we're also training them that culture is appropriate. So I'm seeing some demarcation of results with my students. Students who log on to Moodle and watch the experience live or within a few days, there's no significant difference between those, and I did a spot check of attendance for one of my lectures. Just said, hey, sign your name if you're here. How are those students doing with one another? No significant difference. Students who are enrolled in the web stream and aren't logging on through Moodle, because that's the only way I can know who is there, are performing significantly worse than the overall cohort. So would those be students who would not attend lectures anyway? It's tough to say. There's a self-selection bias associated with the enrolment process. Anyway, I think there's some more analytics to be run there. We've got web stream students. We're providing as close to equivalent experience as we can. I had to learn some things, but it's not been difficult as an academic to run with it. And I think we're suiting the culture of the students. So that was all I had. but ask questions. I mean, JP and Morgan have been 100% instrumental in setting everything up. Dave and I are both fairly experienced with running it.
Appreciative, because
No,
and
indeed.
I were running around the university talking to Nikki Fideli and people from business school
Yeah.
and looking at Microsoft solutions and all of these different
Yeah.
things. And we met with JP and Morgan and they just said, oh, let's smash something together and summer break. And,
Yeah.
and we did it. We got it up and running for 3 subjects for the whole semester.
And like
And like that's
minor teething issues in the first 2 weeks,
yeah,
and then it's run,
pretty smooth.
yeah, pretty smooth from there. So, well done, guys. Sorry?
How do you recompense?
We'll be addressing that in the
Yeah.
talk.
Kane.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the camera person, yeah. They're undergrads that Kane employs. Yeah, go.
You mentioned that you thought it may have dropped off your live lecture enrollment. How are you judging that?
No, qualitatively.
Because lectures normally, you know,
Yeah.
so they sort of,
There's a natural attrition.
yeah.
I agree. I judge it based on some conversations I've had with students. Just students I've caught. So everyone turns up to an exam. So I see students at exams that I've never seen before. Some of them are webstream students, but some of them are not webstream students. And I say, hey, I haven't seen you in lectures. And they say, no, I watched them online. And then they fail the testing. Oh, well, maybe you didn't. Yeah, qualitatively, I can't tell.
And what does this offer that echo the ALP that doesn't enable you to do?
Good question. We looked at ALP before, so yeah, the active learning platform was being rolled out.
The video counter, obviously.
ALP didn't have the ability to like stream digitally. You have to pre-load the slides.
Yeah.
For engineering, for us, that's been completely essential.
Yes, there's no video stream, although in some rooms there was.
Yeah,
Medicine, they had the camera. Yeah, so there's that. There was, slides couldn't have animations and you couldn't digitally, so nothing could be handwritten. What, does ALP do anything like either whiteboard or?
What about interactivity? And actually getting that, because that's the one thing that ALP does bring to the classroom.
Yes.
Interactivity. I sat in a lecture of 250 accounting, first year accounting students from 6 to 8 on a Monday night. Now I think probably not very engaged, but I was fascinated by how engaged they were, and then I asked them about it a little bit early.
Okay.
And the academic was just using a few features, which was just the polling and the quiz tool. And then I would talk to the students afterwards, and they said it keeps us focused and
Yeah.
paying attention
So
to the
just,
chat.
she was just sort of throwing in a question every now and again, just to
Yeah.
keep them off the sport chat.
It'd be nice to be able to,
No,
both
indeed,
do
yeah.
what you're doing, but actually have the ALP functionality in there just to sort of.
My personal opinion on that is that I want the students in the lecture theatre to be sitting and looking at me. And if I do anything like that, every single one of them's going to have a device. It's a distraction. They're going to want to check their Facebook, check this, check
Well,
that.
I do, but you know, I sat in the back of
Surprising,
them.
we sat at the back of them
And they weren't.
They were engaged.
They were totally
well.
engaged, and you know what they were doing? They weren't on Facebook, they were explaining to each other what she was talking about, if there was any
She left a little
misunderstanding,
bit of
so.
time, you know, for them to answer it, so
It
that
was fascinating to be behind their screens,
Yeah.
and because it was like, okay, 15, and it's that 15 minutes attention span, 20 minutes, and that was really good.
Yeah, and then you've got to ask a question
Then
and
you've
do
got to
something.
jump in,
Engage, yeah. Yeah.
I think there was a certain amount of, not reticence, but caution about, especially when trying to make sure all the hardware works and make sure people using the hardware and making sure you guys are able to achieve the things you want to achieve in terms of delivering, to then add, as Phil said, a kind of extra cognitive load to all of that before this, we can be sure that this runs smooth.
Yeah.
Um,
Fair enough, I mean, it's just about finding systems that can.
at least in the first semester or first
We could add live polling if we wanted to.
Yeah.
I think it stops us from using Slido
Yeah,
or
there's-
Microsoft Pulse.
Microsoft has a thing, Google Forms has a polling.
I suppose it's just that, ALP law is going to be rolled out across all institutions
Yeah.
next semester, so it's sort of in terms of accessibility for anybody and everybody, it's an easy tool. There's a whole lot of other functionality though, it's not just polling and quizzes.
we went in during the ALP pilot, and we were offered to do the pilot, and we demoed the system, and we checked it all, and it didn't meet our needs.
Yeah.
So we developed our own.
Right.
And it's still
But
just
if it goes there,
Factor, but yeah.
like if it gets there,
It will. I mean, it's actually developed so much even in the last 4 or 5 months.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, not.
Hopefully it will.
It was a let's find a solution that works, and this was yeah.
Yeah, if it can't do any, things that you obviously do, so it's
Yeah.
Or like in engineering, like you sketch things out. You know, it's classically taught chalkboard talk. There's only so much you can do with statics, yeah.
How are you using the Surface Pro? So you're just walking around with a graph and writing on the graph and it's showing up here and...
I just pulled one up here, and that's just the lecture I did on Monday. It just happens to be, this is what I wrote on the screen.
My writing's
during
much
10
less
minutes of a
legal.
2-hour lecture.
Right, and that's coming up on the
Projected
screen
on it.
and into the stream as well.
Yeah. For integrity of the video feed, it has to be Ethernet connected. So we're not walking around yet, because then the Wi-Fi might, but it's the surface there, and you're sketching there, talking to it, and it's coming up. Yeah. And then.
Is there a special setup for that with the projector or?
It's just a feed. Then within OneNote, if you set up a class notebook, you can either have that live shared to the students, or after the lecture, add that to a student space, and that's, so rather than you wrote it on a whiteboard and you rub it out, you wrote it on your Surface, and that then becomes part of their digital notes. So there are advantages to having it recorded rather than cool. Good. Thanks, JP.
I did. Am I on? One second. We'll come to the end.
All right. Cool, good.
All right, everybody. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about that lecture recording service that David and Phil were just talking about. And just to touch on some of the points that you guys made before about the interactivity, it is quite a cultural shift to be able to adapt your lecture to ask questions in the middle of it, digital questions that you expect responses to come up on the screen. That's a bit of a cognitive load for lecturers to adapt to. Some can do it easily, and some can't. Some lectures lend themselves more to that, and some don't. So that's one thing. And like David was saying, we can add polls and questionnaires within slides, from many different tools that are still recorded the way that we do. Adaptive Learning Platform does that well, but the hurdles that we had, especially with the, being able to sketch things on Surface Pros, being able to have good graphics within your slides, being able to demo, thermal heat transfer on some engine, those things are difficult to do and maybe impossible to do on the Adaptive Learning Platform currently. I have been in talks with Karsten about adding a camera feed into the ALP platform. So there's new boxes that may allow for a camera feed, but I don't know where those talks are going or what we plan to do with that. So it may be coming down the road where the recordings from ALP will be similar to the ones that we're doing now, and all that it'll take is just one camera plugged into an HDMI port that's feeding directly into the ALP box, and an operator working the camera. And hopefully that works great, because at the end result will be the students can then choose the side-by-side shots that they want, the picture-in-picture shots that they want, because they'll actually have two video streams that they are mixing together while they're watching it live. I don't know what that's going to be like to be able to download that and play it back. These are all unanswered questions right now. So to get started, I'm going to talk about the history of lecture recording service. And this, too, starts back when I started with Carol Russell quite a few years back. And I was asked to do lecture recordings back in 2009 through 2012 because there was no service that we offered currently, and there was some lecturers that were actually leaving, and they were subject matter experts that we didn't have other subject matter experts at the university level about. So they were teaching one of their last courses, and we wanted to have that recorded so that we can keep offering the course until we got somebody who was expert in this, I think it was chemical engineering course that we initially did. So I was requested to do that. At the time, we were using Lectopia, which if you think Echo 360 is not that good, Lectopia was probably worse. The initial work. So this is what drove me to set up a system like this, because initially what I would do with this recording was show up with a camera, a Bluetooth mic, give it to the lecturer, sit in the class, record him, watch the slides that he's doing, jot down the timestamp of when he was changing slides. Afterwards, I would take that video recording, I would put it into Final Cut Pro. I learned how to use Final Cut Pro. I took all his slides, converted them to PNGs, put them into that recording, and then slid them in and made the picture-in-picture production with the timestamps that I had written down. That, for every hour of recording that I had then, it took me about 2 hours of editing to produce the video, and that's not including the time afterwards to then transcode and compress the video. So it was quite time intensive, and it drove me mad. Luckily, I was only doing one course that one semester, so there's no way that we could have supported the amount of courses that we're doing now. So in 2012, 2016, about that time, I came up with the hardware and software solution that you're seeing back there that's recording this talk right now. The key component of this kit is the Wirecast software. Now, while Morgan doesn't like it very much, there isn't other software out there that actually does what it does. And it enables us to do live editing, live picture-in-picture. We pre-configure all these setups for the students to use that we train on these kits, and it's really easy to pick the shots. It has its flaws, and it crashes once in a while, but like I said, there isn't other software out there that I know that can do it. So at the beginning, I only offered it to people who needed it, who requested it, because it was only just me and Morgan and nobody else, and I would train individuals on how to use it, and then they would record either a special event or a lecture. The main uptake of this was in mining, and it was quite interesting that mining jumped on it much more so than any other school within engineering. But they did, and they used it, and they set up a room configured the way that we have this room configured, which means that there's the laptop doing the recording is plugged into the Ethernet port on the wall there. My laptop, which is doing the presentation, is plugged into the Ethernet port here. They're talking to each other via Ethernet because our Wi-Fi would not accept wireless talking, so I couldn't pick up the slides that I'm presenting here on the recording. Like I said, not a huge uptake. And at the time, Echo 360 was being introduced. People found it way easier because they didn't have to do anything. Just show up to the lecture, and they expected everything to be recorded. Until they realized slowly but surely that these recordings were lacking quite a bit. Like if I went and drew anything here, as Phil was talking about, everything was lost. And in engineering, that happens quite often, as I learned this past semester with all the recordings that we did. So currently, in 2017, we've had a bit of a drive, especially with the new strategy and the changes that are happening here at UNSW. We wanted to improve quality. We wanted to offer a web stream for all the over-enrollments. Before the semester, the web stream was the Echo 360 recording, and that was, in my opinion, unacceptable. If I was a student and I paid the same amount of money as the live lectures, and I got an Echo 360 recording as my course, I would be upset. So obviously, we're dealing with growth in enrollments, and we got some money released to be able to facilitate the expansion of the kits and the recordings. This semester, once I talked to David and Phil and I spread the word a little bit, we got a big uptake on the use of the kits and the use of the recordings. This is the basic setup. This graphic kind of sucks, but it's what I got right now. So we've got the camera operator right here, right? Let me see if I can work this thing. Maybe I'll just use this one. Camera operator, right? We got the camera on a tripod. The camera has a receiver on it that picks up the wireless mic. There's this black magic box, which is pretty cool. It then converts the feed from the camera's recording to something that the computer can read. There's a person running the computer who does all the live switching. They've got headphones on, make sure the audio is coming through well. And initially, we were just connected via Ethernet to the presenter's laptop. That was a bit of a nightmare because we had to get the presenter to install special software. Even though it's small, they had to install the software in order for that to present their slides to our recording laptop. So this past semester, or this past summer, I eliminated the Ethernet need by getting rooms enabled with Ethernet ports in them. So we enabled 7 different lecture theaters on campus as an initial trial, and that worked well. However, I didn't plan very well on the huge uptake, and I just kind of accepted people who requested it if the scheduling allowed for it. And we had quite a number of courses who were lecturing in rooms that were not enabled, so we still had to run with the old system where students would have to connect the presenter's laptop via Ethernet, causing a trip hazard and causing many other issues. And it's been quite an ordeal this past semester dealing with those specific recordings. So how we're doing it. So we increased the kits from 2 kits that we had initially to 5 kits this semester. Had Ethernet ports installed in 7 lecture theaters. Desktop presenter is now installed on all lectern PCs that we worked with IT to do. Like I said, it's a very small piece of software, and they were happy to do it. It didn't bring any risk to our systems. We ran 2 days of training to a bunch of students who put their hands up and said they would like to do this type of work. We let the schools nominate who the students would be to do the recording. Some schools did a good job at picking the students that they nominated. Some schools did not. Yep, so I know somebody was talking about how the students got paid. This is about what most of the schools paid the students. I think one school paid them more, but they only had 2 students doing 1 course, and they decided to pay those students more. But that's about $31.60 an hour for each recording. And for each lecture, I give a half-hour setup and half-hour tear-down time for the students. So if you have an hour lecture, it turns out to be 2 hours that you're paying the students for. And that's 2 students per recording. Other things that we did to facilitate all this, we created a dedicated Moodle course so that we had a lot of content and material in there as far as training goes, as far as letting students know where the theaters were that were enabled, where they were located on campus, what the channels for the room mics were, because the mics that we're using with this kit talk to the same receivers that are in our lecture theaters. So if you program them on the same channel, the lecturer is not only just talking to our recording, but it's being broadcast in the room as well. So that was quite helpful in most of the lecture theaters that they used. And we installed and hosted a scheduling booking system in order for us to manage the kits and when they can be booked and when they were being used. So the live streaming, which we're live streaming right now, each kit has its own YouTube channel, and we live stream a few lectures that decided that they wanted to do that. We live stream via unlisted links, and the reason we do that, and the reason I decided to do that, is to avoid any copyright issues or any issues with students complaining that they were filmed and they were broadcast out to the public, because it's really hard for anybody to find these YouTube videos unless they actually belong to the course, they've actually gone into the course when there was a live stream and clicked on the chat that we've embedded the live stream into. That's what I just discussed. And the other thing that we managed here was we created a team-based cloud store account, which gives us about 1 terabyte of space for storage. We wrote some scripts to take the recordings off each laptop and upload them to a folder within CloudStore. That folder then runs another script that talks to our scheduling system and puts that specific recording into the lecturer's folder in CloudStore, where they then go afterwards and find their recording, review it, and decide to put it in the box into the gallery that I created for each course. Then that gallery is then put into Moodle via the Moodle Media Collection, because I like the Moodle Media Collection. I think it will prove very useful someday, especially with the inline comments. I didn't see much of that used this year, though. So This is right here on the left. This is basically how much everything costs, how much a kit costs. We're talking about 10,000 bucks, and these are all the items that are in the kit. Now, it's quite a few different items, but if anybody wants to replicate this, I can give them a lot of information on how to do that. Now, over here is what IT estimated the cost of putting Ethernets into each room would be. We paid about close to $40,000 to get 7 rooms, to get 3 Ethernet ports installed in each room. The reason I put 3 in is because most rooms I decided that we wanted to decide where to shoot from, either the left side of the room or the right side of the room. I didn't want to take up the middle of the room because, well, there's seats there, and I didn't want to move too many students out of the way to get a tripod in and all that. And then we had an Ethernet port installed at the lectern so that the lecturer can use their own laptop or their Surface Pro if they wanted to draw and not use the PC in the lectern. These are what the kits look like. On the left-hand side, we've got the new kits, which can fit everything in, including the tripod. And on the right-hand side, we have the old kits, which couldn't fit the tripod in, and they have to carry that kit and an extra tripod, and they're much heavier than the newer kits. I also printed these out and put them inside the kits in order for the students to remember how to repack the kits when they're done with it. It is really important for them to do that, because if they don't do that, it's going to be a lot more work for Morgan and I to get the kits ready for the next time it goes out, and things would break if they didn't pack it properly. Plus, the first few weeks of the students doing the recordings, I ran a little contest with them, and I rewarded them gift vouchers for whoever did the best job packing the kits. And that worked really well. Small incentives, and the students, nothing has broken. I think I lost one thing in all the kits out of the 12 weeks that we've been doing recordings, or 13 weeks now. This is the booking system. This is a typical week this past semester of our booking system. The nightmare about this booking system, which, it's kind of busy most days, not too busy. We could pack more recordings in if we wanted to, but somebody has to be physically there to let the students in to pick up a kit, and then let the students in to return a kit. I need to fix that, because it's taken up way too much of mine and Morgan's time to run a booking system, basically a lending library. I'm thinking something like have a room or a closet or something where they can swipe their way in and swipe their way out, and have that swipe connected to our scheduling system, so that only the person who's scheduled to do the recording can actually swipe in at that time. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I really wanted to. This is the kit. This is the Moodle course. So up here, I put a little map with all the different locations of lecture-enabled theaters. If you click on them, you get some details about the room, the channel, and the group for the mic frequency that needs to be programmed. Then we have other things like where the recordings are actually. Like all the recordings, I put them into a media collection here. We put a database of the rooms in case there are any special circumstances, like no power outlets for you to connect your laptop, so you need a long extension cable to connect the laptop, especially if you're doing a long recording. And funnily enough, one of the newest theaters on campus, which has power outlets at every row and every seat in the theater, don't work. It's quite frustrating. Yeah, and it was also a way for them to communicate and just say, I'm not going to be able to make this lecture. Can somebody cover for me? And it worked really well, actually. What else do we have? All right, the live streaming. The live streaming was a bit of an effort, but we didn't have everybody joining in on the live streams. Some of the things that I had to do for every live stream, I would have to create the event. So I created the event, and as I mentioned before, we made it unlisted. That's where you make it unlisted. I made the times of when it starts, when it stops, so that basically you can only view it live when it's going live and when it's in the chat room. There's some setting here that basically you set what the camera feed is going to be going into the live stream. And Wirecast is one of the vendors that partners with YouTube to be able to feed into live streams. And then there are a bunch of settings that I turned off on, like chat and ratings and all that stuff that I didn't really want in these recordings, because these aren't public recordings. These are as private as I can possibly make them and as hidden as I can possibly make them, because I just don't want these recordings out there until we get approval from the university that says, yes, go ahead, put this on YouTube. This is our live channel. This is our course channel. And until that happens, I'm not going to make them, I'm not going to risk us getting into trouble for, without permission. And as Phil showed you before, these are what the recordings look like. So upper left, we've got Phil. Upper right, we've got David. In the middle, we've got Garth. These weren't the only courses that did the lecture recordings, but what I'm trying to show you here is just the different types of shots that each recording can do. So we've got picture-in-picture, and we can put the picture in any of the corners of the screen, or anywhere actually. But we pick 4 corners so that in case the picture-in-picture is covering something important in the slide, the switcher can then make the decision to change that. We've got side-by-side shot. And yeah, I think it's gone really well. And the fact that students are doing all these recordings, you know, after a few hours, maybe 2 hours of training, I think speaks well for the software that actually makes it easy to do. All right. So how did we embed the chat into, or embed the live stream into a chat? It's a little bit of hacking, but not much. We just basically coded it into the chat window itself and embedded the live stream in. This is what it typically looked like. So the live stream would be there, and chat box would be underneath. Like these guys said, they didn't have a big uptake on that, maybe because it wasn't promoted too much, maybe because it wasn't used much. I thought it would be very difficult for a lecturer to be doing a lecture and answering chats, even if the students were telling them the questions that were coming up. I thought it'd be better if they had a TA come in and watch that room, but that hasn't happened yet. All right, and last thing I wanted to point out is the Moodle Media Collection, where I gave everybody a gallery for each course, told them to put that gallery in a media collection in their Moodle course. All the lecture recordings that they then uploaded into the box would go directly into that gallery, and I really wanted them to use the inline comments here, which they didn't. Students could then like their videos, you know, if there was a specific lecture that they liked, and make comments that everybody can see, or have discussions about specific items in the recording. So this semester we did 21 courses that we recorded in total. We did a few other special events and non-courses, like the mech thesis thing that's not really a course. It's, what is it?
Well, it is technically a course.
Is it?
Yeah.
But it didn't have lectures every week. It was just like a random thing. So we did a few special events on top of 21 courses. The total recordings that we did for every lecture was 297. That's in 13 weeks. Total live streams, we did 71 live streams. In hours, that was 531 hours of videos that we put out there and recorded, and 288 live stream hours that we put. And you know, with just 5 kits and basically just Morgan and myself running it, I don't think that's too bad. I think we can grow that with more people. And now I'm going to let Kane talk about his experience as on the school level, managing the students and recruiting them.
Thank you, JP. My name's Kane Murdoch. I'm from the School of Mechanical Engineering. I work alongside Phil and Dave, for that matter. And as JP says, this was, in a sense, a belated attempt to provide a better experience for those students who simply rose above the cap of our available lecture theatres. We don't have any courses that have 1,000 where you can go and insist upon Clancy. We do have numerous courses that are approaching 400, 500, which are blowing out all bar the 2 biggest theatres on Earth, on campus, which are Clancy and the Science Theatre, I believe. So we're above that, but below the maximum. So we're in a grey space, and we still, as heads of school and deans and universities, are saying, take more students. It occurred to me, among other people, I think it was an occurrence in a few different zones, going, this isn't right. And so we need to do something about this. So once I've been working with JP for a few years on different projects and different things, and he's going, I've got this kit. And so we started testing it last semester, the new kits, just grabbing an empty theatre and plugging it in and seeing how it worked and looking at it. And so then we were kind of, okay, how are we literally going to do this systematically across 13 weeks? So what you see here is the Facebook post that I put up
on our Facebook page. It was a simple thing. Who are our most likely employees who will accept? It is literally the lowest casual pay rate because there's virtually no training required. And it's our students. Now, students are our best resource here for a couple of different reasons. A, availability, and B, because many of them have been through the exact same courses. Every single student who has been through David's course is also a lecture recording student. Not all of them would have done Phil's course, but many of them would have. And so they have a certain sense of the content as well. Compared to some of the other schools of engineering who were a bit more random and haphazard about how they went about recruiting, mine were more successful. We have a third of all the courses being captured, run through our school. Our students generally report less problems, have less call on JP and Morgan's time because they've understood the material a bit better, but also because we specifically ask students, do you have any experience doing anything like this? Now they were the ones that I picked. It wasn't, rocket science. It was just a certain, intelligence in choosing your students rather than just randomly grabbing students, which I know a couple of other schools did. As you can see, I got quite a few responses. Sorry, I've got the most boring slides of the lot, but hey, it's fundamentally not particularly interesting stuff. But I got a lot of responses. A number of the students that I couldn't satisfy, I ended up passing on to other schools like electrical. And so I think, generally speaking, it's better off having one port of contact and farming them out to schools rather than we have 9 schools, and it seems kind of stupid to have 9 different centres doing this, 9 different centres paying. Civil pay a different rate to us, which creates its own issues. In terms of actually employing them, I believe you asked this before, it's the casual employment form. And I just got my finance people to do it. I got the students to complete the form, and it's all run very smoothly. I got them inducted by our OH&S person, and it's been remarkably smooth from that point, from my perspective, because I'm the basically one approving their pay every week, as it turns out. I didn't expect that, but I kind of go, it takes me 10 minutes a week. I go into my UNSW and I approve their pays. I've done some random checks, like we have 7 courses running, so I'll do random checks, just pop by a lecture to make sure the 2 people that I think should be there. Of course, if a lecturer went, hey, Joe Blow isn't here, that is a different issue. I've not had that happen. Students have really used the Moodle site that JP set up to just organise themselves. I've got an exam that day, they know the whole group, and they can call on each other to fill in, and they will swap shifts as it suits. It's been very low effort from my perspective for a very big reward. And to kind of describe in terms of our school's finance, one of our courses who got this had 100 students and now it has 180. So basically those students have paid for themselves over about 30 times more, 30 or 40 times they've paid for themselves. Not to mention JP's time, but he costs nothing. So in terms of managing growing student numbers and being able to deal with that in an equitable way that gives them something superior to Echo and gives them access to other things that other students don't necessarily get, like the live stream, it's been a very valuable exercise for our school. And as JP says, we're growing at 17% year on year. That's over the last 2 years, and it's projected to grow just as fast in the next year. These will become all the more important for actually managing student numbers. I can't imagine how we do it without it, or at least I wouldn't feel good putting my name to it. I think that's about it. Questions? No? Yes?
I've got just a question. Why doesn't Morgan like White House do?
You can ask Morgan.
He's just a perverse person.
He's a programmer, that's
I
right.
have an awful lot. Also my microphone. I'm generally like the first port of call for when students are having troubles with Wirecast, and so I've seen every single way that it can stuff up, and it turns out there are a lot of ways it can stuff up, and doesn't do any of them consistently. So it's a bit of a fun experience. I think they've actually been pretty good at bug fixing in the past couple of releases. We've had a lot less problems than we used to. So my hatred for Wirecast is slowly diminishing. It is still the best vision switching software out there, but there's not a huge amount of competition. So if you have, if you want to go out and make a lot of money, make something better than Wirecast, we'll buy it.
There's an open source one.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's not nearly as good.
Yeah.
Like we said, it's the best out there that we know of so far. So. Any other questions, guys? No?
Would you do non-engineering events?
Non-engineering events.
Quite used to it.
If the kids are available
Yeah.
and our students want to do it, like the students that I've trained, I don't see why not.
And what rooms were there? Like
Um,
set rooms or whatever?
So I have a list of different rooms. I can give you that. There's actually more rooms. So like this room's not on that list because I didn't have it created, and it's not really a lecture theater. There's also the Design at End room that I incorrectly gave you guys as the location for today's talk. Initially, that one's also enabled. So it's basically any room that has Ethernet ports that are activated, and possibly an Ethernet port near or on the lectern for the lecturer to present from their own machine. But even if it doesn't have it, they can present from the lectern PC, and we can most likely capture that feed. Ethernet ports are not just important just to capture the feed, but also for the live streaming. There's no way that I would attempt to do live streaming via our Wi-Fi. I don't think the quality would be very good, to be honest.
And venues are mostly like large venues, or?
Not all of them. Some of them are fairly small. So we're talking the Ainsworth GO3 building, Rex Valves,
Law.
the Law GO4.
GO4.
Yeah,
There's
Yeah.
Colombo, one of those, I think.
there you go.
Yeah.
I was lecturing at this session.
Yeah.
Because like a one-off event sort of thing, special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As the word gets out about the capabilities of these kits, then it gets more popular, and I'm getting about 1 or 2 requests per week for non-lecture recording events to be recorded. So tomorrow somebody's doing something with engineering research, and they want to live stream it, and they asked me yesterday, and I'm a nice guy, I made it happen, so we'll see how it goes though. Yeah, the one thing that I'm happy about is that Morgan and I aren't doing the recordings. We do a lot of work, we do put in a lot of effort, but I think it would be impossible if we were the ones doing the recordings. It's too much work. We wouldn't be able to do the other stuff we talked about on the first talk, which is the plug-in work and the educational tools that we've developed. So, yeah.
There's been some discussion, at least in our school, about engaging people like Morgan and JP, well, probably more like JP than Morgan, but people who can do. You have specialised skills, Morgan. You're a very special person. Who can do some Moodle support stuff, who can, manage the students, manage some of the hardware at a more local level, because JP's doing it for a whole faculty, and it's not really sustainable. I think, the amount of call on his time and Morgan's time just to be having effectively a lending library is not really sustainable. I think if
like
you
I
bring it
mentioned
down to a
before.
school level or shared schools,
Yeah.
it's much more so.
But like I mentioned before, I think that's one aspect of this whole setup that we really can't automate. Like I can't automate the ability for people to pick up kits and drop off kits. It's just going to cost some money and space.
But if you have it based in, say, a school office or something like that, it's a bit more feasible because there's more people who can have some level of oversight, who know the students coming in and out, who can, rather than it's totally reliant on these two, letting a student in through the door and going, here's your kit.
All right.
It's great in many ways that you're doing what
Well, we're all on the same team. We just all do different things sometimes, I think. Yeah. That's how I see it, at least. Yeah. So, well, thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the lunch. And
Who's next month for UNFED? Which faculty?
it's a good question. Anybody know? It's on the site.
Is it time?
They might want to start thinking about it.